everything's fine. You are muted at the moment, but we will open soon after a few questions to your questions as well. So be a part of this conversation. This is we're a community center, so please be a community. Open your cameras and join us. We love seeing you. We love you making you a part of this. And thank you for taking the time this afternoon. We hope you're all doing well out there. We hope that the summer is treating you as well as possible under these circumstances. I'm gonna start introducing in just about a minute, but in the meantime, I'll tell you about some of our upcoming programs at the JCC. So coming up at the end of the month, we have one more screening for August, and that is we're bringing back our film, The Passengers, and we're going to be doing a full run of The Passengers. This is a film, a documentary about the Ethiopian Jews who are still left behind in Ethiopia. If any of you are following what's going on in Africa right now as far as the virus goes, I think that this film is even more important right now. Also on August 18th, so that's going to be on the last week of August, but on August 18th, we are going to be screening, we're not going to be screening, we're going to be having a conversation with Netflix's show Immigration Nation. So you need to watch the show on Netflix, and then on Immigration Nation is coming up there, so you'll be able to check that out. And then join us for a conversation with the filmmakers. So please check out Immigration Nation on Netflix, catch up on that, and we're excited to be able to have that series there. Okay, I think it's 1:03, so we're about ready to get started. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Isaac Zablocki again. I'm the director and director of the Jaden's film program, and we're excited to have here the director of The Keeper, Marcus Rosenmüller. Marcus, thank you so much for being with us. We hope you all have seen the film and enjoyed the film, and I think it is a fascinating film. One of the areas that I am most interested in exploring through film is, I think, this change in film that's gone on. I'm going to say it's the post Schindler's List era of films. It's a new era of ways of exploring films that relate to the Holocaust that I think does a better job in humanizing all elements and all participants in these films, and from both sides. And there's a real, I think, revolution going on, especially in the last few years, that I'm seeing films that are complying with this theory that especially the German side is doing a better job in really, I think, taking these stories onto a more personal level and seeing Germans who are not all bad and don't fit into some of the, I think, stereotypes and cliches that at times Holocaust cinema was actually famous for, and even Schindler's List, with all of its importance, I think falls into in some ways. And the nuanced levels of this film I find to be almost revolutionary, Marcus. So thank you for such a fascinating film. Let's start at the beginning. Why did you want to make this film? How did this film come to you? I know there's been documentaries made about this story, and other books have been written about it. But tell us a little bit of how it all started for you.
Okay. So first of all, thank you very much to be invited in such an excited experience for me to talk about so many people so far away about our film. So the project began 10 years or 12 years ago, that producer and a friend, Robert Marciniak, with whom I made a children's film, asked me if I know something about Bert Trautmann, and I didn't know him at all. And when he pitched me the story, I was really curious and wondering, why I'm very fascinated from football. I'm a really football fan, but I never heard about this story. And I realized at once, okay, here we have a on the surface, a football, a very easy pitch, a fascinating a sports story, but we realized at once that there's much more inside. And this is what I'm looking for my films, to have on the surface, heroic story, but subtle, I do not know the English word, subtle, sensitive. I can show under this surface skin much more political things. And one of my, that's really by accident, I'm just here on a farm where I lived 25 years ago. And the farmer once said to me that he's so fascinated from Bishop Tutu in South Africa, because he instated the Truth Commission. Somewhere could go to people if he made a sin, a cruel thing in the apartheid, and he says to the family, I'm sorry for this, there could be reconciliation. And the farmer told me the problem in Germany always was that that everyone was silent. Nobody talked in the normal society about Holocaust, about all the cruel things they did, also about their pain that they didn't involved. And this was the main theme of this film of Trautmann, where I thought I can combine this story from this farmer who told me this and the German mistake, and I can combine it with Trautmann, who started as a Nazi and realized with the help of the re-education program in the British POWs, who realized that he was on the wrong way and changed his life with the help of Rabbi Altman and came to another view on life. And so this was my story, and I could put it in a football story.
And it plays also beautifully as a football story. I have so many questions, and I am going to remind the audience that you'll have an opportunity to ask questions too. If you have any questions, you could put them into the chat box, and then later on we'll open your mics to ask those questions in a live way. But let's start by, first of all, the research and the realities of it. How close is this to the realism of the story? I felt like you did a good job in kind of like touching on historic important points, landmarks throughout Bert's life, but or at least part of his life. How close is this to the reality as far as how things developed?
Yeah. Well, it's a fiction, but in every fiction I want to make, I want to see that that the fiction is reality. This is an aim of mine as a filmmaker. So I met Bert Trautmann after we decided how we can make a film about this. We met him 10 years ago, and after a certain time, when we told him we don't want to focus the big accident at the football play, we want to make a focus on other things, then he said, okay, he invited us 1 week or 10 days to Valencia, and there we made interviews, talked very long to him. And from this 10 days, I think 80% of the story is the basic of our film. So certainly there are some points where I put 3 stories of his life into one story, or where I was searching for a metaphor to find dramaturgic style to put it in my fiction. So like one of the biggest stories is the story with the young child that he wanted to solve, but he was not courage enough. Is this true? And this is based on a story he told us in the Ukraine, when he and a comrade heard shots out of the forest, and he was going through the forest in the night, and then he came to a place where it was hell, bright with lights, and 20, 30 Jewish people were shot there. And he decided at once with his comrade that, okay, we should not tell anyone, because he told me he was afraid that he got shot. So this was the basic for the story with the young child. I choose the child because the childhood is for me always, also in this film, like you saw him, a very, very important thing, because I always, in other films, it's for me so fascinating, because I think, okay, we come up, we want to play with everyone. When is the moment when we get brainwashed, when we come into another world where rules are coming to us and someone tells us this guy is the enemy? And this is the reason I tried to get my art into a story Troutman told me. Yeah. Also, yeah, this is one thing. Other things like especially the letter from Rabbi Alexander Altman. This letter is exactly the letter that he wrote in the Manchester newspaper. So this was for me very important, that this is really the real letter. Sorry for my English, it's not so good, because it's for me so important. So but that Troutman goes to Rabbi Alexander Altman in the last sequence and gives him the hand is for me a wish, a utopia, that we Germans, like Bishop Tutu, had the courage and say, hey, we are sorry. And the second, not only the one who says I'm sorry, also the other who has the courage, or the courage is not the good word, or who says, okay, I give you the hand to make. These are the two things for me to make reconciliation, to make an excuse, is the one who says I'm sorry, and the other who says, okay, let's start a new thing. And I really have to say, this, what Rabbi Alexander Altman said, we have to watch at this person. He has the responsibility with what he is doing. He has to show us which kind of man is for me such an important thing, and something what we have to learn our children, or whoever teacher have to learn us this, that we are individual responsible for what we do, and also the others. And we are not allowed to say these people are bad people or something. So there is always a person there. This is something I love in this letter. Sorry for talking so long.
No, it's beautiful and so important, such an important lesson. And specifically, of course, we have to remember at times that, you know, every individual, even a soldier, is an individual and has their own human story. And I think that's something that's a point that's very well made in this film. I imagine in Germany, this film was extremely well received, though I can imagine that even in Germany and in other places, some people found it controversial that to take a perspective that is saying, you know, I'm sure there are people who say that we cannot forgive. You can never forgive, and you know, I know there's those. I think Rabbi Altman says you know, we should never forget, but we can forgive. And I'm wondering if you've heard any of these responses to the films and reactions in general to his life, to Bert's life.
Well, I hope I catch the answer, the question. Well, in the cinemas with the audience, it was super, because it started really after the film. They started to talk. Okay, in my family it was the same. We never talked about it, and it's so good to see this positive way how we should work with it. Yeah, but especially, like you see also in Europe, the tendency is suddenly the last years, we realized that it starts again, that things were said from certain groups that were 15 years ago not possible to say. The new right-wing party, AfD in Germany, you look to Hungary, you look to Poland, where you look to very much nicht Diktaturen, but the nationalists are increasing. It's more in Europe again that we start this nationality. So also I realized, if you would have asked me 20 years ago, I would have said, hey, Europe is a liberal, it's a free thinking place. And Germany is still, but you realize at the last years, okay, everything is fragile, and democracy is nothing that you get as a present. You have to work for it. You have to, this is again, this responsibility that you have to make something that this Freiheit, not freedom, perhaps, that we are living so free. That's a present. It's not a present. We have to work for it.
And I feel that's very relevant to even America these days, sadly, that I think we need to keep our eye on that prize and remember the humanity and everything, and remember that yes, this democracy and this freedom is not something. I mean, I don't know what's going on in America these days. It might be too late, but it's something that we need to continue fighting for.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a very technical question. I noticed, I mean, one of the things, first of all, the film just looks so beautiful. And did you incorporate there some moments of the actual footage of real games at some point? Was that something that you made it look like at times we were seeing the real games from the 50s?
Thank you very much for your words, because this was really hard work for all the art department, for the 5X department, the digital department, for my camera guy, and also the actors and costume and everything. But so we are very proud. I'm a Bavarian director. I made several films, but always small films. So this was a really Herausforderung. It was a fight for me, or I was struggling and I was nervous, and if I can manage. And so I'm also really glad, because we had one really difficult thing to solve. We got the money, very much money, from Bavaria Foundation. So we had to shoot from the 45 shooting days, we had to shoot 30 days in Bavaria, and we had to shoot as if it's nearby Manchester. And all the stadiums, the football stadiums, they are shot in Augsburg and in Munich. So yeah, it was fantastic work by all the crew, I would say. Also the grocery, we shot directly in the middle of Munich in the backyard. And it is work from my art department. So yeah. And one thing, I was, like I told, I'm Bavarian. In my films, they're always talking hard Bavarian dialect. And here in this film, I also wanted to have that they are talking this Mancunian dialect. And so one actor, John Henshaw, he was really my big luck, because he came nearby Manchester, and he saw Troutman when he was a child. He saw him in the stadium, and he became a friend of mine, and he helped me so much. He went over all the lines and helped me to make it authentic dialogues as if it's Mancunian. So I was happy to have him.
We're here in America. It all sounds the same to us, so it works. And I before we take some questions from the audience, I also wanted to ask about the decision that the third act, I'm going to call it, the third part of the, I mean, really, I mean, I think there's a fascinating, beautiful love story that goes on there and showing how there's this growth to acceptance, and I love the small town story. And then, of course, there's the third act where he starts playing for Manchester, and that's I feel a little bit of a different story. were you considering at any moment to end the film just with that small love story? Because that's where I feel like there's a lot of the focus of the film.
Yeah, not me thought about this, but the producer and also the distributor, because we know if we go out with a love story, if we go out with this heroic moment at the football pitches at the stadium when they won the cup, well, the audience would leave with a better feeling. But for me as a filmmaker, like I told you, it was certainly the importance what is happening with them, and also, yeah, also it was the real story that Troutman and his wife lost their son, and this reminded me to some. Suddenly, I read this biography and I read, oh, this is my protagonist, and I realized, oh, his son is now dying. It was dying. But if we read now in the newspaper, in a war, yeah, there's a bomb falling on a bus, and there are 17 Syrian children dead. There are, or over there, all the people who died in the war, all the people who died in the Holocaust. These sometimes are newspaper lines, and I wanted to show, hey, no, every one of these children has a family, has others who are suffering, and everyone who is dying there makes the hate increasing. So for me, it was the third act very important for the whole film. I wouldn't have made the film if I wouldn't brought in this message. This was very important for me.
And I think it connects nicely. It does definitely shift a little bit into another story. But an important one, and you would have gotten a lot of complaints if you didn't keep that. I'm sure. I know there's a lot of Troutman fans out there who have been like, "How could you have not told that part of the story?" And I think especially those moments with the rabbi, I think are profound, and it all ties it all together really, really beautifully. I'm sharing again. I shared it before in the chat. I shared an article that came out today in the forward by Dan Friedman, which I thought it was a fantastic article about this film. So please, folks, if you haven't read it yet, you could check it out. Also, folks, I'll take this moment to remind you that that if you haven't seen the film yet, the film is available till this weekend, till Friday. So check it out, and also be sure to tell your friends. This is their opportunity to see it with us. I'd love to take a question now from the audience. And again, if you have other questions, folks, please put them in the chat box and we'll open your mic like we're about to do for D. Dector. D, you're on.
Hi. I read the article in the forward, and I wanted to know, the movie made it sound like Bert wasn't a Nazi, and circumstances made him fight. He was a regular German. He was forced into fighting like many Germans were. But he was a Nazi. He was in the Hitler Youth. He did participate in bad treatment of the Italians, his allies, and yet he beat them. It really glossed over his own change, I guess, because it made it sound like, oh yeah, just circumstances, I had to fight, that was all. Yet he didn't just have to fight. So the question is, why didn't you go on more on that? And the other is, why didn't you spend more time on how the Jewish townspeople and how felt, which also were not very happy, just like the British, and how the rabbi went about changing his own mind? Because there was very little with the rabbi, you know, the part where you can see the rabbi watching and he was very angry, and then he opened his eyes and then he wrote this letter, but you don't hear a process at all of that. I hope that makes sense, those two questions.
The first I understood very well. Yeah, this is something I realized when I started the film. I was totally with you. When he told me, Trautmann, in his interviews, I didn't have a chance. I always thought, oh, so you had a chance, yeah. I was from, yeah. I thought, okay, you're lying to me. And the more I was talking to him, the more I made the researches, I realized I can't judge it really. I do not know what would I have done if they took me out with 12 years, with 10 years, with 11 years to the Hitler Youth and made me brainwashed. This is something I certainly realized I can't judge 100%. And then there it started to be fictive for me. I was interested in someone, okay, what is if you meet someone and you think, well, he's a nice guy, and then and like Margaret is marrying him, and then realizes, oh, he hasn't told me about things. He hasn't told me that he was walking. He never told me that he had the Iron Cross. So I have different Nazi types in my film. I have the one guy who really, he was really part. Zack, he shot the boy. He doesn't felt emotions. There are very many who run with the others, or were brainwashed and run with the others, and I'm sure at some point they realized we don't have a chance any longer. Realized that there are happening crimes, like Trautmann realized he was in this forest. I tell in this film that he realizes he was in the forest. He knew about what is happening, but he was hiding it. He was hiding it. Like, I think very much people in Germany hide it, and this is the reason they were so ashamed of. However, I do not know. This is something I do not know exactly. I only know that they were not talking about it. Some because they made bad things, some because they were not courage enough. And this time I was interested in one who realizes he was part of the bad guys and is ashamed of. I have also the other guy, the Holthaus in the POW, who got struggled. You do not know, made it by himself. Was he killed by the other real Nazis? So this was something the British and the POWs didn't know very often. Who is good? What the Sergeant Smythe is asking Trautmann, hey, do you know what Holthaus did in the war? And he do not know at all. And this is something we do not really know from many people. But and now come to the second. This is Rabbi Alexander Altman. That's there you can tell, you can say, okay, maybe I should have brought in the big fact that he was how is it called, fleeing. He was he had to escape from Germany, yeah, and he has not the quality time as the quantity time in my film, but in my opinion, it is. For me, he is a main character. Also, he is there and he is there. And already the second scene never existed because I was in the perspective of Trautmann. It never existed that they met, but I wanted that they met. So, but as I realized very often, the question you are asking, why have I made so small piece of Rabbi Alexander Altman, is something in the if I could make the film new, I would think about how can I put him more in. In my opinion, when I made it, I thought, okay, he is so important. He has a very important space in the film. Was this a answer to your questions, or was it?
I think it answered well. I think you addressed all of the questions there. We have another question from David. David, your mic is on.
Yes, hi, thank you for coming. So my question is, we had mentioned this briefly earlier in today's chat, about movies coming out now that focus more on the human interest stories of what we could consider people who were reluctant to collaborate, or maybe even in some cases would be considered righteous Gentiles if they were Germans who took more of an active role in trying to sabotage or hide Jews. But I'm curious though, what do you think is the motivation for you specifically and the German film industry in general? I mean, do you think that maybe they're trying to really get to the bottom of what their ancestors did? Or do you think that maybe they're just trying to make themselves feel better, trying to show, oh, we weren't all bad, we weren't all like that?
Okay, I tried to answer. I was not 100% sure if I realized everything. So for me, the motor is one thing what Trautmann did also afterwards, is that people, that things are changing if you meet the others. And it's in a dialogue also between Trautmann and Margaret, I'm not the monster you think so. And in reality, sometimes we are the monsters if we have these prejudices against another and if we are only tools for a bad thing. And this is something I wanted to show, that if it was John Hansch, Jack Fryer, the father, who didn't like this German guy, but then suddenly realizing how it is, if people meet, attitudes changes. Trautmann afterwards, I haven't showed it in my film, he made a foundation where the use of German and the use of British met and made football games, and there was a meeting and prejudices went away. And this is something I wanted to show, that if you meet the people, things changes.
Let me ask, I'm curious about two elements here. First of all, has the film screened widely in England, in the UK? And how were the reactions there? And has the film screened in Israel? And I'm curious to the reactions.
Yeah. So yeah, the film was shown in Germany, in England, and always the reactions in the cinemas. We've been also in France, as in French, for Frankreich. I was there in the cinemas, and I realized the reactions, they're very good. Always such discussions like we have now were coming, and questions, and how should we make, and what is our aim, and where is it going to? And this is for me always a sign, okay, yeah, the film is emotional, and it makes questions. Some things are made wrong, or some people say, hey, this is not, you should have go deeper in this point, and so on. But I like this in this kind. I was not in a cinema in Israel at the time where it was screened, because I was shooting another film. But there were relatively much more spectators than in Germany. So in Germany, again, we have, they realized, oh, okay, it's about the film, about this theme. It's still, they are afraid of being confronted with all these things. Sie können gerne was holen, wenn Sie. You know. So, and also in England, it was a kind of, they're talking about our history. They want to show, these filmmakers want to show us how to behave. If they went into the cinema and talked about it, it was a good reaction. But in Israel, there were much more spectators in the cinemas than it was. So there were, yeah, you know, it was much more relatively to how big Germany is. And a big surprise was for us that it was running very good also in Australia and New Zealand. It was more spectators than in Germany. So yeah, it's perhaps in Germany they're still shy, or how is it called, or afraid of this subject. You know,
Yeah. I think it does really a fabulous job in bringing out. I think also the other perspectives that we don't get to see often in cinema, and telling stories of German soldiers of that time. I mean, it's very hard, even for me now, 3 generations later, to see a German soldier and not to have that association that of questioning, can I accept this person? And yet I think all the points are made in a way that that allowed me to feel okay with accepting him, and knowing that that still atrocities cannot be forgotten. I want to thank you so much for this film, and thank you so much for sharing with us this afternoon. Marcus, good luck with the new film that you're making. We hope to see it soon.
Thank you very much to be invited. Yeah, hopefully you like the film, and hopefully you see that I want to go in the way of solidarity and together future. You know, thank you very much.
It's an extremely important message today. Folks, please share this with your friends and get people to see the film while they can. This conversation, of course, will also go on our JCC Film YouTube channel. I want to thank all the other cities that have been participating in this virtual release, especially the New York Jewish Film Festival, the Charlotte Jewish Film Festival, the Houston Jewish Film Festival, the Boca Raton Jewish Film Festival, the Fort Lauderdale Jewish Film Festival. I think I've covered them all, hopefully. Also, the Austin Jewish Film Festival, if I forgot any, please forgive me. Thank you all for being a part, and look forward to seeing you in person soon. Stay safe. Thank you. Have a good day.
Ciao. Thank you very much.
Tschüss.
Tschüss. Servus.